politics.
Congressman Delaney?
So the bill that Senator Sanders drafted, by definition, will lower quality in health care because it says specifically that the rates will be the same as current Medicare rates. And the data is clear. Medicare does not cover the cost of health care. It covers 80% of the cost of health care in this country. And private insurance covers 120%. So if you start underpaying all the health care providers, you're going to create a two-tier market where wealthy people buy their health care with cash, and the people who are forced, like my dad, the union electrician, will have that health care plan taken away from him.
Thank you, Congressman.
They will be forced into an underfunded system.
I want to give Senator Sanders a chance to respond.
Under Medicare-for-All, the hospitals will save substantial sums of money because they're not going to be spending a fortune doing billing and the other bureaucratic things that they have to do today. Second of all, maybe you did that and made money off of health care, but our job is to run a nonprofit health care system. Furthermore, when we save $500 billion a year by ending all of the incredible complexities that are driving every American crazy trying to deal with the health insurance company, hospitals will be better off.
Congressman Delaney, I want to let you have a chance to respond.
Listen, his math is wrong. That's all I'm saying. That his math is wrong. It's been well documented that if all the bills were paid at Medicare rate, which is specifically, I think it's in Section 1200 of their bill, then many hospitals in this country would close. I've been going around rural America, and I ask rural hospital administrators one question. If all your bills were paid at the Medicare rate last year, what would happen? And they all look at me and say, we would close. But the question is, why do we have to be so extreme? Why can't we just give everyone health care as a right and allow them to have choice? I'm starting to think this is not about health care. This is an anti-private sector strategy.
Hey, this is Hidalgo News Review, and I'm Ryan Hidalgo. So that was one of the more standout moments during the debate, with Bernie Sanders going toe-to-toe with John Delaney. Elizabeth Warren also went toe-to-toe with him. You know, a lot of people were frustrated that John Delaney had as much time as he did, seeing that he was polling around 1%, and not a credible candidate for president. He can't compete in this race. It's just very clear that he's not a viable candidate. But I really don't feel like we should look at any sort of presidential race that way, saying, they're polling around 1%, they should just drop out. Well, Tulsi Gabbard's polling, she was polling around 3%. And I certainly wouldn't say that about her, that she should drop out. She's a voice and she needs to be heard. Now, I know John Delaney, he's a shitty voice, but at the same time, that's not a good metric for why someone should drop out, is their poll numbers. It's a bad precedent to think that way. A lot of candidates that don't stand a chance of winning should remain in the race because of a principle they're pushing. Now, with John Delaney, what's his principle? Well, he's anti-Sanders. Now, that's a crap principle. He's protecting the billionaire class, the millionaire class, and his own wealth. He has made at least $100 million in the past 6 years. He's already a multi-millionaire. Has about $200 million. And 3.5 million wrapped up in, 3.2 million invested in healthcare companies and funds with health industry holdings. So he certainly has a dog in this fight, right? To protect his wealth. So for Medicare-for-All to come into play and for private insurance to be eliminated, well, that's going to hurt his pocketbook. Furthermore, it's going to hurt his pocketbook to have Bernie Sanders as president, because John Delaney, most of his investments is in banking. Celebrity Net Worth stated that his financial report showed he had $60 million worth of investments in the banking industry. If you go to Open Secrets, again, that shows most of his investments are in a combination of finance, insurance, and real estate. Now, this is a shady guy. You put all that together, this is a shady guy. Furthermore, he also voted with the Republicans to make sure that the already weak banking regulations would go away, right? and he has all this money invested in the banking industry. That's shady. This is a shady guy. Nevertheless, I don't like the precedent of saying, well, someone's pulling around 1%, they should drop out. Yeah, this guy, his principles are in the mud. And he, to be honest, I like that he was in the debate because he was the perfect epitome of corporate greed. And Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren both got to punch at that punching bag. And furthermore, him doing so poorly and Sanders and Warren doing so well really illustrated how corporate run the media is, because the Washington Post was pushing how Sanders and Warren lost after the debates. Chris Matthews, he's saying, "Oh, I'm so glad that you're in this race, John Delaney." You know, that's a shame. So anyways, moving on. I want to really touch on the claim of hospital closures, which is what the clip showed. Now, John Delaney's claim was rated false by PolitiFact. This is John Delaney's quote, to reiterate, this is the same claim, but from June. If you go to every hospital in this country and you ask them one question, which is, how would it have been for the last year if every one of your bills were paid at the Medicare rate? Every single hospital administrator said they would close. This was rated false. PolitiFact goes into detail. So it really depends on which hospitals you're talking about, said Gerard Anderson, a health policy professor at Johns Hopkins University and an expert in hospital pricing. Hospitals that treat a large number of uninsured patients, people who arguably would gain coverage under a Medicare-for-All approach, would probably increase their revenue under the new system because they would no longer face the financial pressure of uncompensated care. But hospitals that treat many privately insured patients, for whom insurance rates are often negotiated in a favorable manner, would see their revenues decline. Economists are quick to point out that the latter scenario isn't necessarily bad. American healthcare spending is notoriously higher than that of other developed countries. Research suggests that hospitals, particularly those with lots of influence or market power, are among the key drivers of these high costs because they are able to negotiate much higher rates with insurers. Now, the article goes on to make a number of other points, states that researchers say a dramatic turn in hospital financial sustainability is unlikely. Additionally, hospitals that rely on private insurance are still able to cut those costs elsewhere. The article states that these hospitals have billions in reserves from retained earnings, which would forestall bankruptcy for some time. And finally, it says costs would change under Medicare for All, which Sanders mentioned.